Wow, I could see your icon, right? Your avatar. You were enjoying the beach, isn't it? Okay, students are joining the class. Wait for a little bit more. And today we will learn another tool. So please prepare paper and pen. Okay, we need to practice. Okay, 80 students. Let's wait until we have around 95, then we can start, okay? All right, I believe that we are going to have full class soon, so I will start to share my screen, okay? Can you see it?
Yes, teacher.
Right, okay. All right, so as I mentioned, before we go to the next chapter, then we will review a little bit the tool that we learned last week. All right, and the tool is the Venn diagram, isn't it? And now I'm going to show you the questions, and you're going to use the Venn diagram to come up with the validity of the argument. So are you ready with the pen and the paper? Or you can draw it on the apps and take the pictures in the put it in the chat box. Okay, that is how we look at your answers. I want to see it because I want to see how you answered, whether it is correct then but wrong conclusion on validity, or the correct conclusion on the validity but wrong then. Okay, now please, when you have the answers, picture it and put it in the chat box. All right, and follow all of the steps when we use the Venn diagram. When you receive a categorical argument, first thing you do to make sure the format is correct, isn't it? It must be 3 lines. It must have the structure with 4 parts, quantifier, subject as a noun, to be verb are or are not, and predicate as a noun, isn't it? And then you can draw. And then we also need to make sure that if it is the premise with the sum, then we must be careful with the rules. There are 3 rules related to the sum. And also there are some tips in drawing. Look at the conclusion to name the circles, something like that, right? Make sure to follow everything like that and put it in your answers, okay? Now, let's look at the argument here and spend several minutes to do and put your answer in the chat box. I will look at the chat box now. Minh Tú, my queen, you guys need to come up with the pictures of your answers. Do not give me valid or invalid, okay? I cannot check your answers by saying valid or invalid only. The others, please also write down, draw it, take picture of it, and show me in the chat box. Okay? From valid or invalid, I don't know how is your real work. Thịnh, Huyền, Bảo, Luân, Nguyệt, also Trâm Anh, Sơn, Thảo, Quyên. Please put it with, yeah, I saw the first pictures from Thu Anh. What does it mean? The A of Q here, M and P. Oh, and then the drawing has problem. The drawing has problem, and the shaded part is somehow confusing because the overlap part is too small. I can't really see. Okay, Hải Yến got invalid, and this is the drawing. And she named P painters, M magicians, A artists. All right, and next time try to put your argument into symbolic form. All right, when I look at it, I know how to draw. Otherwise, I need to look back to my argument slide. Okay, and so we have invalid from Thu Anh, invalid from Hải Yến with the drawings, but the drawings from Thu Anh has the problem. I think the mistake is in the drawing. Minh Anh also I saw, and yeah, Minh Anh put the argument into symbolic form, and also had the drawing to be same with Hải Yến, and different from Hải Yến drawing, yeah, you see, and also invalid. So check again, be careful. I saw the different drawing now. Hoàng Ly, Hoàng Ly didn't look at the conclusion when she names the circles. Okay, left for the left, right for the right. Therefore, it will be difficult for me to check the answers. All right, and she also come up with invalid arguments. Minh Thùy, okay, I believe the same naming for the variables, and the drawing from Minh Thùy is same with let me check, same with Hải Yến, isn't it? Yeah, and it's difficult to compare with Lee, the drawing now. Xuân Sơn, you didn't say anything, but from what you draw, I could see that you didn't look at the conclusion when you name the circles. So your drawing is somehow a little bit opposite to Hải Ly. Hải Ly or Hải Lý, I'm sorry. Thu Anh again. Okay, Trần Thu Anh. We have one Thu Anh. Thu Anh changed it. Okay, Thu Anh draw it again and it's clearer. Yeah, and it's the same with Hải Yến drawing, and also same with Minh Thùy drawing. And also it must be invalid, isn't it? Okay, and Xuân Trường got the same drawing with Minh Anh, but different from the other friends. So check again. You see, when you have the sum in your statements of premise, you must be careful. You need to apply the rules, isn't it? Okay, so check again. Please look at the chat box all together with me. I'm now looking at the drawing from Phương Vi. Phương Vi also had the same drawing with Hải Ying and An, isn't it? And also invalid. Thảo, Ngọc Thảo, also same drawing and invalid. Oh, Raman, what are you drawing?
Dạ, em vẽ nó bị lệch cái nó nhầm qua bên cái chọn kia.
You guys, okay, maybe something wrong with the pens app. Raman draw the 3 circles like that. It's really difficult to check, isn't it? Okay, and Thùy Ngân also had the same drawing with Hải Yến, Minh An, and other friends. Again, Kim Ngân, you didn't listen to my guidance when you draw. 2 at the bottoms, 1 on top, isn't it? And that is why it's really difficult for me to check now. Hoàng Luân has different drawing with the others. Okay, and Khánh Đoan also didn't look at the conclusion when naming the circle, so it's a little bit difficult to check and compare. You see, I look at your answers and I could give you advice on what you did. And somehow Kim Thu drawing also a little bit opposite. I think something wrong there. Okay, let me look at the other answers before we get to my answer. Thành Đạt got the same drawing with Hải Yến and the other girls just now. Again, Minh Đức show different drawing, maybe the different naming for different circles. All right. Oh my God, Đăng Khoa, what are you using to draw? But it's really difficult for me to see. You didn't have 2 at the bottom, 1 on top. And also the shading is not so clear, and it's not easy for me to see where is the X. Okay, it's really difficult to give comments on your drawing. And also my wing has a little bit different in the drawing. Maybe the order, the location of the circles are different. But all of you come up with invalid. So you see, all of you come up with invalid conclusion, but then the drawing is different. Okay, the Venn diagram are different among you guys, so be careful. Okay, now let's look at my slide to see what are the wrong points from your answers. So we could see that we have all of the structures, all of the parts for the standard statements already. So we don't need to convert anything, isn't it? And then if you want to name, you can name P as painters, A are artists, okay? And M is magicians, like all of you name all together like that. We pick the first word and make it into capital. So it is okay, in common. And then we notice the second point is that in our premise statements, we have the sum. So we must apply the rule number 1 to draw the all no first, the sum later, isn't it? And then we draw this, when we draw the second premise, we must be careful because we may apply rule number 2, isn't it? Or even number 3, we don't know yet. Okay, but anyway, the first thing you do is you have to draw the 3 circles. And I told you guys already, please look at the conclusion when you name the variables. Okay, 2 at the bottom, 1 on top. Make it like this and make the overlap part big enough so that later on you can stick the X on, right? So try to make it like this. And then look at the conclusion to name. So the left is for the left objects, M. The right is for the right objects, P. And the remaining on top. Okay, then we started to draw, and yeah, we apply rule number 1. We draw the own PRA first, so we ignore the M. We look at the P, okay, and the A. So here we are going to touch the P, we don't touch the A, remember. And if all PRA means we will remove the part of P that does not belong to A, so that all of the remaining part of P will belong to A. So we are going to shut down the P1. Remember, P1. We don't touch the A, okay, because they are talking about the P. Now, this is what we do for the first drawing of the premise 1. the own premise. Okay, and now next is the statement for the premise 2. Sum M R A. You ignore the P. You look at the M and the A. And the statement say that, oh, there is a X in the common part of M and A that you have to put in, isn't it? So this is the area. You need to use the pen to highlight the boundary of the areas. Okay, so this is the area you should put the X, isn't it? But you see that there is a line separating the areas into two. So you need to apply rule number 3. You have to put the X on the line. Okay, so this is the X on the line. This light blue doesn't mean we shut down. Okay, this light blue just to indicate that we have the 1 and 2 and we put it on the line to make it into, yeah, make sure that the X belongs to the whole area here. So you are done drawing, isn't it? Now you will look at the Venn diagram that you draw and the conclusion. So the conclusion mentioned about M and P. So in this case, you ignore the A, the M and the P, and they said that all sum M R P. It means that if you want to have this is a valid argument, then you must see the M in, the X in the common part of M and P. We must see, but we don't draw, okay? Do not draw the conclusion. So now when you look at the area of M and P in common, you highlight the boundaries, okay? This is the area that they want us to see the X so that the argument is valid. But do you see it? No, we don't, isn't it? We only see half of the X. Remember, in the previous week, we learned one example already. Half of the X is not the X. So in this case, the conclusion tells us that we should see the X in the common area of M and P, but we don't see it. We only see half of it. Then this argument is invalid. So please check your drawing with my drawing, especially the order of the circles and also the X location, and make sure that you have the correct diagram. So many of you got the wrong diagram here, isn't it? Because you didn't remember to apply the rules. So although many of you may have the same answers, the same diagram, but that might not be the correct one. So I will check your answers once again later on, but here is the correct answer. Do you understand? Is there any questions for this part? So when I look back like this, so far I saw Minh Đức got the correct diagram, but just the location, the order, okay, of the circles are not the same with mine because he didn't look at the conclusion when he named the circles. So please check by yourself, all right, and compare with my answer. Any questions? Any quick questions? Yes or no? Can I explain the last sentence again? Quyên, what do you mean by the last sentence? You mean the conclusion? The last statement? Or what? Right. We want me to explain about the last statement, which is the conclusion. So yeah, I hope you guys remember that when we draw, we don't draw a conclusion. We only draw the premises. And this diagram is what we got after we draw the two premises here. And we apply all of the rules related to the sum, isn't it? Rule number 1 and rule number 3. Now, for the validity checking, by using the Venn diagram, the validity tells us to check the conclusion of the argument with the Venn diagram that we draw based on the evidence. If the conclusion is being described on the Venn, then the argument is valid. If not, then the argument is invalid. Okay, so we check the conclusion, we don't draw the conclusion. And the conclusion says sum M R P. It means that it must have the X in the common area of M and P here. Then the argument is valid. It means that if the conclusion is being described on the Venn, then we must see the X in this area. But actually we don't see it, isn't it? We only see half of the X because we draw the premise 2. So actually only half of the X we saw. So the conclusion is not being described on the Venn. Therefore, this is an invalid argument. Do you understand? Yes or no? Okay, yeah, I hope you understand. Any other questions besides wing questions? I hope when you do the homework, you do the exercise, you practice for more and you understand how to use this Venn diagram, okay? Because it takes part of the score in the midterm exam. It's also very much important for the midterm. Is everything okay? Please respond. Yes or no?
Yes.
All right, okay. Maybe the network is not good because I saw your response very late. Okay, thank you. Anyway, then we are going to go to today's class and we are going to learn another tool. Okay, the Venn diagram is used for the categorical logic, and now we are going to apply the other tool for this logic. And in this logic, we are going to see different relations among the information in the statements. Okay, so now let's get into it. And we are going to use this tool, and very soon you will see the name of the tool, but we also will convert our argument into the variable forms. So previously, when we used the Venn diagram, we will convert our arguments with the symbolic form is for the objects and the in terms of subject and predicates as a noun. Okay, so for this kind of argument, we are going to convert our arguments into the symbolic form as well for the variables. Okay, and we also name the variables. But when we name the variables, we need to consider some point. But anyway, the name of the tool today is the truth table. The truth table means a table to tell you the truth about all of the possibilities for the value of the premise and conclusion based on the value of the variables that we have in the argument. Okay, so that is why it is very much important, because we need to convert our argument into the variable forms, so that when we look at the statements in the symbolic form, we will count. It will be easy to count how many variables we have in the argument, because the number of the variables will determine the size, okay, the scale, the size of the truth table, and how many possibilities we are going to have in that table. Okay, so we will convert our argument into the variables, and in order to do so, we need to name the variables. So when we convert the arguments into the variable forms, we need to remember that each variable stands for a complete sentence or statement. If in the Venn diagram, a variable is a noun for a subject or predicate, then for the truth table, the variable is a complete sentence or complete statement. Okay, it's not only just a noun, not only the subject, but also the whole statement or sentence. Okay, remember that. And then remember, after we could convert our argument into variable forms, then each of the variable may have the value of either true or false. Any variables will have either true or false value. And then because it has the values like that, we are going to use the truth table to list up all of the possibilities. Okay, that is why it is very much depending on the numbers of the variables in the arguments. Then we have big or small size for the truth table. Okay, now remember that. But then look at this very simple table you could see here. All right, this is the very simple truth table. You see only a table of one column, isn't it? And this is one column for one only variable. It is not for the argument yet. This is just a table to list up the possibilities of the value for the variable. And if we have one variable only, so this is the table of the variable. The blue one, I highlighted in blue to indicate that this is the name of the variable. And then I separate it with a line, okay? The name is here and the below one are the value, the possible value of that variable. Either it is true, T, or false, F. So you can make it short in T or F like this. So we are going to use the truth table to list up all of the possibilities for the variable's value. Okay, so this is very simple truth table. For sure, later on when you deal with the exercise or the example, the table will be much bigger. Okay, remember, each claim must be a complete sentence or statement, and each of the variable might have true or false value. Okay, now the first relation we are going to learn is the conjunction. So as I mentioned earlier in the argument, we may have many information. Okay, information means a complete statement, single one. And then in that argument, we may have the relation among the information. Oh, please someone turn off the microphone. Okay. And then we are going to use the rule. It depends on the relation. Then we are going to apply the rule to check or to come up with the value of the relation. So here, if you look at this example, a compound statement, with two information. A is tall, B is tall, okay? And they are having the relation of the and. So we are having the conjunction relation. If your statement have the linking word like and, but, however, though, although, some kind like that, it means that information between those are very much linked, okay? They conjunct. They are having the conjunction relation. So you are going to symbolize the conjunction relation by the symbol and like this. And then we need to symbolize it into variable form. So we name the variable. Okay, so if we have two information like this, we may name P. Okay, let's use P, Q together. You can name differently. It depends on you, but you need to explain the meaning. So here, let's have something in common by naming the P stands for A is tall. Okay, and Q stands for B is tall. We don't name P as A or Q as B, but it must be a complete sentence or complete statement. Okay, so P is A is tall, and Q is B is tall. Okay, and then you know already that each of the variable will have either true or false value, isn't it? So for the Q, we also have either true or false value, and the P, we also may have true or false value. So we are going to use the truth table, okay, to list up all of their values and then apply the conjunction rule to make the value for the conjunction column, in which here P and Q. How are we going to apply the conjunction rule in order to make the value of P and Q based on the value of P and the value of Q? Okay, so we are going to have a table to help us listen up all of the possibilities. All right, and remember, again, each of the variables will have two possible values, either true or false. Okay, yeah, so we are going to see all of the possible values on a truth table. Now, before we learn about the truth table, we need to somehow calculate in advance that, okay, how many lines, how big is the size of the table we have, depending on the number of the variables. Okay, so now let's take this as an example. If I have an argument with two variables, okay, and each of them may have the value of true or false, then how many combinations may I have? How many possibilities may I have? Hai Ying, please.
I think there are 4 combinations.
Hai Ying said 4. How about the others? You can put in chat box. Hai Ying raised the hand first. Hai Ying got the bonus already. But I believe that, yeah, Mai Wing also said she got 4 for the possibilities or the combinations, isn't it? How about the others? Yeah, also Đức Hạnh said 4. Very good. Okay. Thơ also 4. Trúc Quỳnh also 4. Bích Huệ also 4. Very good. Now, if it is the case, then my questions to you next is, all right, of course you know it is 4, right? How can you come up with number 4? Is it 4 equal 2 plus 2, or equal 2 multiplied by 2, or 4 equal to power 2? What is the exact formula for that? Minh Đức in the chat box said that is 2 power 2. How about the others? Hải Yến also agree. Hoàng Ly also agree. So let's take, Phương Nhi also agree. Okay, so if Minh Đức is correct, our friend agree with you, then yeah, maybe that is the correct answer. And it is very good because in the previous class, the other class, our friend said, oh, it is a 2 multiplied by 2, 2 plus 2. But like you guys did, I hope the others also got the answers, and same with our friends. The answer here is we are going to have the power is the correct answers, isn't it? And why do we need to come up with a systematic way of calculating the possibilities? Because it is very much depending on the number of the variables in the arguments, isn't it? So if you have an argument with 2 variables, you know that you are going to have a truth table with 4 rows, 4 possibilities. Okay, and you already come up with the idea for the formula 2 power 2. Okay, now what if they increase the number of variables? You need to first calculate, because you need to prepare the table, isn't it? And you don't want to miss any possibility, or you don't want to have any duplication, isn't it? So we need to calculate in advance how many possibilities are we going to have? How many rows are we going to have for the truth table, isn't it? That is why it is important to come up with a systematic way or formula to calculate, to list up the possibilities. Now, if we have 3 variables in our argument, how many possibilities do you have? Yeah, Minh An said 8. Bích Liễu also said 8. Okay. Oh, Mai Quyên said 9. Oh, Mai Quyên said 27. Right, you see different answers now. Khánh Huyền also said 9. Okay, you see different story now. Tuyên Dương said 6. If Tuyên Dương said 6, it means Tuyên Dương wants to say 2 multiplied by 3, isn't it? Then you have 6. If you have 9, it means Mai Quyên wants to say 3 power 2, isn't it? If you have 8, it means you have what? 2 power 3. 2 power 3 means 2 times 2 times 2, isn't it? But 3 power 2 means 3 multiplied by 3, right? Mai Quyên changed it into 27. How come you get 27? Mai Quyên, it's too much, isn't it? Khánh Huyền also said 9. All right, and Phương Vi also said 9. And Công Sang or Nguyễn Vinh want to make sure, Quỳnh Nga wants to make sure they don't make mistakes. Then they put it into 2 power 3. Okay, and Tuyên Dương said, oh, she has some mistake, confusions there. Okay, Mai Quyên also. Yeah, so the correct answer is 2 power 3 equal 8, isn't it? So if you see the result of the possibilities, you will see that once we increase 1 variable in the argument, the size of the truth table will be double, isn't it? Isn't it? So if we have 4 variables, then we are going to have a table with 16 rows. Okay, 16 rows, because we have 2 power 4 equal 16. So you see, that's why in this slide I color the PQ in red and the TF in blue, and the number of the value 2 is for the true or false, and the number of variable is in red. Okay, so 2 red is the number of variable. So the value of the variable's number must be in the exponential part, isn't it? So here, this 2 is the value of variables, true or false, and the exponential part is the number 2 of the number of variables. That is my purpose when I color the number like this. I hope you realize that. Okay, and when you have 3 variables, yeah, like you guys said, we must have 2 power 3 equal 8 possibilities. And you don't need to worry about if they increase this number of variables in their argument, you still can apply the truth table to list up all of the possibilities, because you know how many possibilities you must list already. Even if they increase it into n variables, we don't know how much is n, but we can have the formula to calculate or to estimate the number of the possibilities that we are going to make in our truth table. So that is the importance when we need to come up with a systematic way of listing up or calculating the number of possibilities. Okay, so I hope it is understandable for this part, right? Okay, if you have any mistakes or confusions, please remember the 2 is the number of value, which is fixed, and then the exponential part is the number of the variables that might be changed depending on the number of variables in the argument. Okay, right? Then you can make sure that you have enough possibilities when you conduct the truth table. Now, let's continue with the conjunction just now we mentioned. Again, the conjunction is when you have the word, the linking word in your statements, in your arguments with the and, but, yet, while, whereas, although, those, however, something like this. It means that the information in the arguments is very much linked, very much needed each other, or supportive to each other. Okay, then you means that you have the conjunctions relation. And when you have the conjunction relation like this, you need to apply the conjunction rule when you want to list up the possibility of the conjunction depending on the value of the variables. Okay, and here we could see that the conjunction rule is a conjunction is true if and only if both of the simple claims are true. So if we have the P, the Q as our variables, then we are going to based on the value of P, Q, and then apply the conjunction rule in listing up all of the possibilities of the value for the P and Q here. Okay, this is the conjunction rule, conjunction relation between P, Q. So we are going to apply conjunction rule. Now, if we have a table, we will list it on the table. We make sure that we make all of the possibilities for the table. Okay, and previously you guys calculate for me already. You said that if an argument has 2 variables, then we may list up 4 possibilities, isn't it, for the combination? And now you can look at here, we have the 2 columns of the premise, of the variables, and we are going to apply the conjunction rule in filling the value for this column. Okay, again, the blue one I highlight here means the name of the variables, the name of the columns we need, and then the below one, separate by a line, is the value. Okay, now you see that the way to fill in the standard columns for the variables. So here we have 2 variables. We have these 2 columns are the standard column for the variables. Okay, and we need to have the systematic way of filling as well. We know that we know how many possibilities based on the number of variable already, but we need to make sure that we have a systematic way of filling, of listing up the possibilities as well. So here, if you say that 2 variables, you are going to have 4 lines, then the way to fill in is, please remember, this is very important tips for you. The first column, for the first variable, you take double true, double false. If it is 4 possibility, then take half of the 4, means 2 true, 2 false. Okay, and then the second column, then you take true, false continuously. Okay, then you will make sure that you list up 4 possibilities without duplication, without missing any possibility. Okay, right? So before we fill in the column of the conjunction, let me ask you, all right, if you have the 3 variables, it means you have 8 possibilities, isn't it? How are you going to fill in the first column of the first variable? I hope you understand my question, right? Fill in the first column. All right, I got the first correct answers is from, let me scroll up. Lê Quý Minh Đức. Okay, and Minh Đức said we need to list up 4 times true, 4 times false. Okay, Thảo Trang, Tuyên Dương, Hải Lý, Thành Trung, you guys need to list up all like that. Xuân Sơn said, Xuân Sơn, we are talking about 3 variables. It means 8 rows. So if you list up like that, it's only 4 rows, isn't it? So Minh Đức got the first correct answers. The first 4 is true. The second 4 is false. Okay, we take half of it. Gia Huy also, Trần Gia Huy also got the same answer. 4 times true, 4 times false. Very good. The other friends try to make it in 8 rows. You only mentioned for 1 and then for 4 only. But we are talking about 8, isn't it? 8 rows. So for the first column, in order to fill in 8 rows, we take 4 rows true and then 4 rows false. Okay? Then, how about the second column for the second variable? Trúc Na, I don't understand your question. I'm asking. Yeah, right. Bích Liễu, very good. Phạm Thị Bích Liễu. Let me take note the bonus. Bích Liễu said, all right, if it is the second column, it's same with Minh Đức answer. We take double true, double false, double true, double false. Isn't it? So if we have 8 possibilities, the first column we take half of the 8. 4 times true, 4 times false. Okay? And then the second column, half of the 4. Double true, double false, double true, double false. Like now, Công Sang also got the same answer, or Xuân Sơn also got the same answer. So you know the logic here already. The tips, the hint for us to list up the possibilities. It depends on the number of variables, depending on the size of the table. Okay, so that is double true, double false, double true, double false are for the second column of the second variable. The third one, easy, right? True, false, true, false, true, false, continuously. Very good, Minh Đức, Kim Thư, until we make 8 rows like that. And remember, you start with true and you end with false. Don't mess up. Okay, make sure you list up one by one. True, false, true, false, true, false, and true, false. Okay, very good. I hope the other understand the logics that we are trying to say now. Now let's think of 4 variables. Then how will you do for the first column? 4 variables mean you have 16 rows, isn't it? So what will you do for the first column? Hải Yến want to say. Hải Yến, please.
I think there are 8 times true and 8 times false in first column.
Thank you, Hải Yến. Very good. Thanks, Hải Yến. And Trần Gia Huy in the chat box also provide very fast answer. Okay, Gia Huy and also Kim Thư, Traman also very good. If you don't want to list and make mistake, you can type like Gia Huy, 8 times true and 8 times false. Okay, Trúc Na now also got the idea already, right? I hope you guys had the idea now. How about the second column? Second column. I'm looking at the chat box. Hải Yến also very good. We have 2 Hải Yến here. Nguyễn Thị Hải Yến and Nguyễn Hoàng Hải Yến. Okay, and Nguyễn Thị Hải Yến, Nguyễn Hoàng Hải Yến, Thu Anh or Mỹ Lệ also got very correct answers. It means you got the logic already, right? So if it is 8 times true, 8 times false for the first column, then the next column you take half of the 8. So 4 times true, 4 times false, 4 times true, and 4 times false. Isn't it? Now, how about the third column? I need to take note that we have 2 Hải Yến in our class. All right, the third column, very good, from Kim Thu or Kim Thư, I'm sorry, 2 times, 2 times. Okay, and Xuân Sơn, make sure you list up for enough 16 rows. Okay, very good. You see, after today's class, when you sleep, do not wake up in the middle of the night and scream, true, false. Okay, your parents will be very much worried about us. All right, anyway, very good. Now you know the logic already, isn't it? For the third column of the third variables, double true, double false, double true, double false, until you fill in all of the 16 rows. And I believe you know what is the last one, isn't it? The last column of the last variable is true, false continuously until you fill in 16 rows. Is it okay? Everything is good, right? Now, when you practice, you know that we come up with the logic and then it's easy for us. You don't have to think. You remember the logic already. When you receive an argument with how many variables, you still can do it. You still can make the table as long as you have the big paper enough for you to list up. If they increase the variable into 5, you still can do it. Into 6, you still can do it. Isn't it? Even anytime that the argument increase one variable, the size of the table will be double bigger. Understand? Very good. It's okay, right? I hope. If not, then please raise your hand to ask or put it in the chat box, okay? Then I will return back to my slide. And I cannot see the chat box now. Right, so that is the logic in filling for the standard columns of the variables, okay? So now we are going to fill in the column for the conjunction. And we need to use the, apply or follow the conjunction rule, okay? Again, the conjunction is true if and only if both of the simpler claims are true. So here, if you look at the table, all right, we could see that these two are the simple claims to come up with the conjunction. So again, conjunction is true if and only if both claims are true. So when you look at the 4 rows that you already filled automatically, systematically, then you could see that only the first row has the both claims are true, isn't it? So we apply the conjunction rule. So only this is true. Remaining case will be false. And then you will have this table. And this table shows the conjunction rule and show the value of the conjunction based on the value of the variables of the simpler claims. Get it? So again, how can we fill in? First of all, we need to identify all of the columns that we need to have, okay? And for the standard columns of the variables, we have systematic way of filling already. And then the later columns, it depends on the information we have. Then we conduct the relevant relations and we follow the relations rule in order to fill in the value for the other columns. Get it? Now, let's practice. Okay, we are going to look at an argument and we are going to first name the variables and then we are going to symbolize it and then we started to make the truth table. Here, I'm showing you one example, okay, of the argument after we symbolize it. So after we symbolize it, we could have something like just the variable like this. We name something is P, we name something is Q, and then it depends on the arguments, then we convert it into symbolic form. And this is the symbolic form of one argument that we are going to practice later on. But first of all, when you look at the symbolic form like this, you must know what does it mean, okay? So if you see the dot, dot, dot in this part, it means this is the conclusion. And for sure, the upper two are premises. It may have one or more than one premise. But if it is the dot, dot, dot next to this, it means this is the conclusion. Okay, so when you convert your arguments into symbolic form, make sure to put the dot, 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 the 3 dot like this, in front of the symbolic statement of the conclusion. And then we are going to apply the validity rule. Okay, previously Wing asked me to explain again the validity rule when we use the Venn diagram. Okay, and I explained already. For the truth table, we also have the validity rule in order to come up with the conclusion on the validity of the whole argument based on the truth table. Okay, so this is the rule. After you conduct a correct truth table, okay, it must be correct at first. It means that you list up all of the values and you make sure that you did it all correct for the other columns as well. After you make a correct truth table, then please look at the columns of the premise. okay, the columns of the premise. If it is one column, one premise, look at that column of premise. If it is more than one, look at all of the columns of the premises. And find all of the rows that has premise true. And if you could see any rows that the premises are true, all of the rows of the premises, and if there is any premises row that are true, but the conclusion is false, okay, the conclusion of that row is false, then your whole argument is invalid. But if you don't see such a row, okay, it means that your argument is valid. Again, that is the rule for the validity when we apply the two-name truth table. Again, after you make the whole correct truth table, please look at the column of the premise only, okay, and find all of the rows that has premises true, and check with its rows conclusion. Okay, if you have any rows in the premises true, but the conclusion is false, then your whole argument is invalid. But if you could not find that rows, it means your argument is valid. Okay, so please remember that, and then we will practice, and for sure you will understand more, and you can use the truth table easily, like you did for the Venn diagram. I hope you all master the Venn diagram already. Okay, and today we'll learn about the truth table, another tool. This is also very much important for the midterm exam as well. Now, let's look at this example. This is original argument, okay? And I already symbolize it like this. Now, I want you to ask for your understanding. What does it mean P, Q, if I symbolize the argument into that? Then you must guess, okay? Very good. Nguyễn Thị Hà Yến, please.
P mean sky is blue, and Q mean grass is green.
Very good. And I saw the other hands from Tinh Dương and the other friends. But yeah, Nguyễn Thị Hà Yến got very correct answer already. So I hope your answer is also the same with Nguyễn Thị Hà Yến. Okay. And here I practice for you. So I name already, and I convert it into symbolic already. And now I want you to understand what does it mean. But for the later arguments, later exercise, you can name by yourself, okay? You can pick any letter, not PQ, but any by yourself. But make sure that you explain what does it mean by the name of the variables. So here, if I use P and Q, then P means, like Nguyễn Thị Hà Yến said, sky is blue. And then Q means grass is green. And then you could see that we name PQ like that. Then we can convert our statements, the premises and the conclusion, into symbolic form like this. And we want to indicate that this is the conclusion. Okay, so we put the 3 dots like this. Okay, to indicate this is the conclusion statement that we already symbolize it. All right, now we started to use the truth table. We need to conduct the truth table. So we need to identify, okay, look at the symbolic form. We see that we only have PQ. So we have 2 variables, isn't it? So we're going to have a table of 4 rows for the possibilities, isn't it? So when it is 2 variables, we need the 2 columns for the variables. And then we need to identify what else should we need. And in this case, we need the conjunction P and Q, because it is the conclusion that we need, isn't it? And in this example, the good news is the premise, okay, premise 1, premise 2 is the same with the column of the standard variable. So we don't need to add any columns, all right? But in the later examples, you will see that we need to conduct additional columns depending on the statements that we already symbolized for the arguments, okay? Understand? So in this case, we need to conduct 3 columns. The first is the P, okay? The second is the Q, because they are the 2 variables in our arguments, and they also will be the premises in our arguments, okay? And then the third one is the conjunction. We need it because that is our conclusion, right? And then for the first 2 columns, you know how to fill in already, all right? We learned already the systematic way. Okay, if it is 4 rows, if it is 2 variables, the first column is double true, double false. And then the second variable, the true, false continuously. Okay, and then for the third column, it is the column of conclusion. For sure, we will need to fill in the value. And then we could see that in the third column, it is a conjunction of P and Q. So we are going to look at the value of P, value of Q to apply the conjunction rule, okay, to fill in the value for this column. And again, remember, a conjunction is true if and only if the both simpler claim are true. Okay, so only in this case, the first row, we see that true and true becomes true. Remaining cases, the conjunction is false. So how are we going to fill in the column 3? We apply conjunction rule. How are we going to fill in the previous 2 columns? We use the systematic way of filling the column for the variable. Got it? Then you are done making the truth table. Now we apply the validity rule. Again, validity rule said that after you finish making a correct truth table for that argument, please look at the column of the premises. And here you see P is the premise 1. Q is premise 2, isn't it? So we are going to look at these 2 columns and find all of the rows that has premises true. Again, all of the rows that has premises true. Later on, you have a table with many columns, but we only look at the column of premises. So here, the first 2 columns are the column of variable, but they are also the columns of the premises. Okay, so look at the first 2 columns. You see that only the first row, isn't it, has both of the value are true. And then check with its conclusion. Oh, conclusion is not false. Therefore, this argument is what? Very good, Tuyên Dương. Valid, isn't it? It is not like what the validity rule said. Validity rule said, yeah, all of you, very much correct. Validity rule said that please find all of the rows that has premises true. And if the conclusion is false, then the argument is invalid. But we don't see that. We don't see that. Okay, here, in this case, we could see that, oh, we have one row that has all the premises true, but the conclusion is not false. So it is a valid argument. Do you understand? Yes or no? It is now very simple exercise, and I hope you understand so that we can go to more difficult one. But if you don't understand, you need to ask me, okay? This is a tool that we need to understand how to apply it. Okay, very good. Everything is okay, right? Okay. So we are going to look at a more difficult example then. Now, what if I have this example in the original statements and the symbolic form? Again, could you please tell me what does it mean P, Q? All right, I saw the first hand from Trần Thu Anh. One, please. Turn on the microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wait a second.
Okay. I already symbolized it. Explain the meaning of P, Q.
I think the statement grass is green is P, and is a premise, but we don't have the Q, and we have the conclusion. So grass is green and the sky is blue. Because we don't have the statement, the sky is blue, so I think the conclusion is false. We have the premise.
Wait. Hold on. Again, I'm asking, what does it mean P? What does it mean Q here?
P is grass is green.
Q?
Q, I don't see any Q here, but
the Q is here. The Q is here. The Q is here.
I suppose the sky is blue.
Yeah, not suppose. It must be correct. Okay, so here, thank you, Tuan. A little bit confused in her answers, but then I asked her to correct it. So if I have the original statement like this, okay, and I symbolize it for you guys already. Now I want you guys to understand what does it mean PQ. So at first glance said, oh, we don't see the Q here, but no, this is the Q. And you have to guess the meaning based on the comparison of the symbolic form and the original statements. Okay, and now Tuan said, right, P means grass is green and Q means sky is blue, isn't it? And I saw the hands, I saw in the chat box, yeah, very good. In the chat box, Minh Tú already said valid. But anyway, first of all, you need to understand what does it mean P, what does it mean Q first, already? On the next time, you have to name it by yourself, isn't it? And Anh Thu, please make sure again, we see the Q here, right? I name it for you. You can pick up the information and you saw that, oh, we need two variables. We need the P for grass is green or whatever letter you use. And we need another letter for the variable, the sky is blue. Okay, and then now you start to use the truth table. So because we have P, Q as the two variables, for sure, the first two columns must be P, Q, isn't it? And then we need additional columns depending on the arguments. Okay, so here, like Anh Thu said, oh, we don't have the premise 2, we only have one premise. So we are going to have another column for the premise, which is the P. Okay, so later on we can copy the column, or if you are lazy, you can identify the column that is the P, okay, for the premise column. And then you need to conduct the column for the conjunction P and Q because it is our conclusion. So we are going to face a situation where we have the columns in the table, but when we check, we don't look at all of the columns, isn't it? We only look at the columns of premise and we check with the column of conclusion. So the suggestion is we are going to put the asterisk next to the column of premise and we put the C next to the columns of conclusion so that when you finish making the truth table, when you look at the truth table with the asterisk and the C like that, you know where to look at when you check the validity. Okay, so in order to avoid the confusions, because like one said, oh, we don't have the second premise here. We only have one premise with the column P and then the conclusion column for P and Q. Okay, so make the truth table. In this case, someone are lazy, someone just put the asterisk to the column of the premise, to the column of the variable P, because that is the same with the premise, isn't it? And then, yeah, put the C in the column of the conjunction because this is the conclusion column. Now, you know that you have PQ. This is how you fill in for the two columns of the variable, isn't it? And then, because the conclusion has the relation of conjunction, so please apply the conjunction rule in filling the column here, isn't it? And then to make sure that you know which column to look at, if you don't lazy, you're not lazy, you copy the column P to here to be next to the conclusion column. Because later on, in the later exercise, you will see that somehow we have many columns and many columns in between of premise and conclusion. So when you check, when you look at the columns of premise and which is far from the column of conclusion, you may be confused. So the suggestion is the next time, you will see very soon, we are going to copy the column, even though it is the same, but we copy so that we make sure that the premise column will be close to the conclusion column. And we can make sure that the conclusion column is the last column in the table. Okay, so here in this case, we don't copy. We just put the asterisk here to say that we are going to look at this column to check, all right, the validity. All right, so please look at this table and especially pay attention to the first column, which is our only premise here. Please tell me what are the rows that we should check. So we have 4 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, not 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Which row should you check? Again, validity check. The rule is there. Ready, right? Very good. Trần Giang Huy said we check row number 1 and 2. Nguyễn Xuân Sơn said only 2. Trâm Anh said only 2. Be careful. So again, right, Trần Thu Anh said 1 and 2. please remember the validity rule. Okay, although 2 is correct, but you must actually look at the 2 rows. 1, 2, isn't it? Because the validity said, please find all the rows that has premise true. In this case, we only have one premise, so we only look at one column. And here, you see, we have 2 rows that has premise true. So actually, we need to check 2 rows, not only one. Okay, we have to check row number 1. And when we check, we look at row number 1, which has true premise here. And now we don't look at the Q column, because the Q doesn't play any role in our argument. Neither the premise nor the conclusion, isn't it? So you have to ignore the column Q. You use the pen, the paper, or your hand to hide the column Q here on my slide. Okay, only look at the column of premise with asterisk and check with the column of conclusion with the C here. Now, the first row has premise true. Check with conclusion. Oh, conclusion is true. It is okay, no problem. But the second row also has premise true, but conclusion is false. This is what the validity rule said. If you could find a row where premise true but conclusion false, then your argument is invalid. Very good, invalid. Yeah. Thu Anh, Gia Huy, Công Sáng, Công Sang, Trúc Na. Okay, Trâm Anh also very much correct. So, very good. Thảo Trang also add, this is a invalid argument because we could see a row, a possibility, a case where premise true but conclusion is false. Okay, so then this is invalid argument. Got it? Now, how about this one? First of all, please tell me, what does it mean P, Q? Nguyễn Thị Hải Yến, please.
Yes. B is Franklin is shock. And Q is Franklin is
stout. Okay,
yeah.
Very good. So you see that the information, yeah, I saw the other hands. Maybe next time I will call you guys. Sorry, Hải Yến very fast. Next time I give the chance to the other friends, okay? So yeah, like Hải Yến said, and I believe you guys also have the same answers with Hải Yến. If I symbolize our arguments like this, and you can see with the original statements like this, you can guess the meaning. Okay, so P means Franklin is short, and then Q means Franklin is stout. You can name differently, but let's use PQ together. Okay, now we also use the truth table. Okay, I want to see what are the columns that you are going to make. How many columns are you going to make? You can put it in a chat box, it's okay. What are the columns that you are going to need? Minh Thi said 4. Could you please list up? Oh, Traman said only 3. Minh Thi said 4. Oh, Thái Thành also only 3. Thu Anh 4. All right, Trúc Na 4. Minh Tín only 3. Hồng Ân hay Hồng An, I'm sorry, 4. Việt Thắng 3. Okay, so 3, 4, 3, 4. All right, which one is correct? Maybe 3 means you don't duplicate anything. So Thu Anh gave us a detailed explanation. What are the 4 columns that she mentioned? She needs P and Q because we have 2 variables in our arguments. Very good. And then she needs P and Q because she put the asterisk there. It means that we are having the premise, isn't it? Very good. And then she duplicates the column P because that is the conclusion column. And because she wants to make sure that column P, column of the conclusion, is the last column. So, very good. If it is 4, means it's something like Thu Anh type here. If it's 3, it means you guys didn't duplicate the column P. Maybe you put the C next to the first column, isn't it? And you said that, oh, this is the column of conclusion. Be careful when we check it, isn't it? So, very good. 3 is correct, but 4 is better because we will make sure that the column of conclusion to be the last column and close to the premise column. Okay, very good. And now, so look at my slide here. I believe that with two variables, you are good at it already, and you know how to fill in, isn't it? But here, yeah, like Tuan said, I'm going to make the table with 4 columns. Although for sure you know how to fill in the first 2 columns, isn't it? Don't ask me again, okay? I hope you understand it. And then for the third column, we need it because it is our premise. And yeah, like Tuan said, we put the aesthetic here. Okay? And then I follow Tuan. I copy the column P. I want to make sure that C, the column C, conclusion, is the last column. And it's next to the column of premise. That will be easy for us to check, isn't it? Otherwise, you have to look backward. You have to look at the third column and then you look back to the first column to check. That is confusing sometimes, especially when you deal with more columns or bigger tables, something like that. Now, I know that you know how to fill in the third column, right? Also, because you apply the conjunction rule. And then for the fourth column, because we copy it, so the value would be the same, isn't it? Copy it. And then look at the table. You see that we only check the column of premise. So now we ignore the other columns previously. We look at the third column and we found that only the first row that has premise true, isn't it? And then we check with the conclusion. The conclusion is not false. Therefore, this argument is what? Valid, isn't it? Thuan, very good. Phương Nhi also, Trúc Na, Thảo Trang, Minh Thi, Công Sáng, Công Sang, Công Sáng, sorry again. Anh Huy, Hồng Nhung, very good. It is valid because we couldn't see any rows that has premise true but conclusion false. Therefore, this is a valid argument. Thank you. Okay? Right? Is it easy? Yes or no? Easy or not? Huh? Quickly, response. Easy or not? What does it mean silent? Not easy? Somewhere in between. There is at middle. Traman is okay, easy. Yeah, normal. Zaba said normal. Okay, good. Then, yeah, again, you know that we need to practice in order to master a tool. Okay, always. So for sure, you will have homework today, but we will practice all together as much as we can in class, okay, during the class hour. So now let's continue. We need to learn another way, another relation or another information ways of converting into the variables. And the second information you need to be noticed is the not, the negation. And the negation is used when in your statements you have the word not. Okay? And if you have the not in your statements, you don't name the variable with the not, but you leave the not for the negation. Because if you leave the not for the negation, later on, when you take the negation, the value of the variable will be opposite. So here, if you have a value P with true or false that you list up in the table, then if you take negation of it, the true become false and false become true. So the negation for you to notice is when your arguments, the statements has the not in there. And when you see the nots like that, do not name the not in the variable name, but leave it there, leave it outside of the name, so that when we convert our statement into symbolic form, we use the negation. And this is the symbol for the negation, okay, like this. All right, so very easy for the negation. When you see the not, and when you use that, you take the opposite value. So let's practice. But before that, I make a short notification that in our textbook, there is still a mistake there. If you read, you will be aware of the mistake in the page 262. But that is just the information. You don't have to look at it now, okay? Just be aware that sometimes even the textbook make mistakes, all right? Now, let's practice with this one. So you see the not here, isn't it? Now, I want you guys to name the objects, name the variables. Okay, variables, sorry, not objects. Name the variables, convert it into symbolic form, and make the truth table, okay? And come up with the validity of the argument. So you have the paper and pen with you, isn't it? Now put it into the paper and show me in the chat box. Hurry up, try to save time. Make sure you name it and you explain it, isn't it? And then convert it into symbolic form. Make sure you have enough columns. Do not omit any columns and list up all of the possibilities. Follow the systematic way and the rules. And be aware that in this case we have the not. So we need to take negation, and also it has the relation of conjunction. So we have to apply conjunction rule. Tick tock, tick tock. No answer yet? What took you so long? I'm waiting so long. No response. Am I still in the class or I lost my network? Can someone react something? Are you still listening to me? I'm talking alone. Okay. Ying with the heart, it means she's still
Teacher,
listening.
I cannot type
Yes.
the negations. Is that something
Oh,
wrong?
negation.
Yes.
Negation. In Vietnamese, it look like dấu ngã hả? You can type like that. Or you type, you don't write by hand. You want to type on the laptop, the computer. The others, if you want, you can write and then you can take pictures of your answers, isn't it? Come on, hurry. It takes a lot of time for this very simple questions already. What is P? What is Q? And then what is your symbolic form? What are the columns in your table? How are you going to list it down? And which row you check? Yeah, highlight the rows you check. and then come up with the conclusion on the validity. Oh, I saw Minh Tú. Okay, P is Tina is tall. Very good. Q is Sarah is tall. You see, we don't name the not here, even though in our statement we have the not. And then Minh Tú, next time you need to convert your arguments into symbolic form before. Let me open your pictures in full. No, yeah, you don't have it. You have to put your statements of the arguments into symbolic form first. Similar with Hải Yến, do not put the negation P into the line of the name. So you need only like Minh Tú, P means Tina is tall, Q means Sarah is tall, and then you make the conversion into the later part, to the below one. Okay? And in Hải Yến answer, I don't see in the table, I don't see the asterisk, so I don't know which one is the column of premise. Okay, I expect to see the other answers from other friends to have a complete answers. We name it, we convert our argument to symbolic form, and then we started to make the truth table. So you need to make sure you have all of the components like that in your argument. And also try to highlight, circle the rows that you need to check. Here, I don't know which row you want to check. Nguyễn Hoàng, Hải Yến, make sure you put the asterisk in the column of the premise, okay? And I saw the C for the conclusion column already. How about the other friends? Is there anyone else? Yeah, that is good, right? I saw your answers and I can give comments on your answer. Make sure that you have all of the components for the answer. Why so long? It is nearly 10 minutes for this question already. If it is the case, maybe we don't have time for the break. I intend to give you guys a break, but if it is the case, is it okay for no break? Okay, I saw the answers from Trâm Anh. I don't know what does it mean PQ in Trâm Anh answers, and I don't know what is the symbolic form of the argument. Maybe Trâm Anh try to use the Pens app or something that's difficult for her to operate it. Or easy, you can use the Excel. You can open the Excel. You see, we have the row, the cells there. You type it easier. But the most convenient is to have it as the paper and pens. Okay. Trâm Anh, your answers, I don't know which row you check. Okay. And whether the validity of the argument is what. Where is the column of premise? Okay. And also the column of conclusion. You see? Try to improve your answer. Another answer is from Thu Anh. Again, I need to turn my head. Trần Thu Anh said, right, Tina is not tall but Sarah is tall. She rewrite the question. And what does it mean PQ? Thu Anh didn't explain. And Thu Anh converted into, it is not, Tina is not called tall but Sarah is tall. And then dot negation P, Tina is not tall. And we have the and symbol, the conjunction symbol is too small, Thu Anh. Okay, make it bigger next time. And she put the asterisk for the third columns, and the last column is the conclusion. And she said that she checked the third row, and this is valid argument. Or she checked the third or the fourth, both of them. Thanh Thái said Tina is tall, Sarah is tall. Thanh Thái didn't convert the argument into symbolic form. And Thanh Thái didn't put the asterisk to the column, so I don't know which column is the premise, you see? And Thanh Thái said this is invalid. So the conclusion on validity from Thanh Thái is different from Thu Anh. One said valid, one said invalid. Hải Yến said invalid, but I don't know if Hải Yến has the correct truth table or not. I expect a complete correct sentence answers now. It takes us more than 10 minutes already. And I don't think that we can have the break because we are spending time like this. Okay, if I don't have the correct answers, then I have to show it by myself. It is very simple question, isn't it? Why you guys didn't have the correct answers? So if this is, I don't look at the chat box now. I'm sorry, I'm turning back to my slide, so I don't see the chat box now. Now, if you see the original statement like this, and when we are learning about negation, we know that we should not keep the not in our name, isn't it? So all of you, I think that the naming is correct. All right. So you name P means Tina is tall. You name Q means Sarah is tall, isn't it? And then we are going to convert our argument into symbolic form. And some of you didn't notice this part. You have to do it, but many of you did, so it is good. So now this is the same tables with one of our friends. Just now I checked in the chat box, and here you could see that we need 5 columns, isn't it? We need, let's see who got that table. Yeah, Tuan, isn't it? Tuan got that table, and we need 5 columns like this. We did the first 2 because we have 2 variables as we name here, P, Q, and you know how to fill in already. And then we need the negation P because the negation P is needed for the column of premise as well as it is the conclusion column. Okay, so we need to take the negation of the P first in order to make the conjunction for the premise. And that is the conjunction of negation P and Q. So the third and the second column to make the fourth column. And then the last column, we copy the negation P because this is our conclusion. So you know how to fill in already. This one, we apply the negation rule, take opposite value for the first column. And then the fourth column, we take the conjunction rule for the third and the second. And the last column, just copy. And now when you notice, you see that only the third, okay, only the third columns that has premise true. But when we check with the conclusion is not false, isn't it? So this argument is valid. And many of you said invalid. I don't know why. I don't know why, but you said it is invalid. Got it? Yes or no? Something wrong? And yeah, I think Trần Thu Anh will get the bonus because she got the correct answer. Isn't it? She checked the third one, only the third one, and only the third one has premise true. Conclusion is not false. Therefore, this is a valid argument. I hope you can do it. And even if you can do it already, make it fast and correct. Okay, we don't have time to waste, especially if you are in the exam. If you could save time and to have the correct answers, then you can do the other part, isn't it? Now, I want you guys to practice. I'm sorry, we don't have time for break. If you need to go somewhere for a few minutes, go and return, okay? Because we don't have time for the break. Now, the next one, you also will see it is somehow more difficult, and also we are practicing with the negation and the conjunction. Again, I want you guys to do by yourself and show me the answers. The others, if you want to go for toilet, I'm sorry to say, please go and then return immediately. You guys need to practice because when you practice like this and you show your answers to me, I can give comments. You see, the comments is very much important in this case. So do it now. Okay, make sure you have 4 parts in your answer. First, the name of variable. Second, the symbolic form of the argument. Third, the truth table with the parts of the line, the rows that use highlight or circle to indicate that you are looking on that row. And last but not least is the validity of the whole argument. I saw the first picture from Ngọc. Oh, Ngọc Thảo. So I don't see the symbolic form of your argument in the picture. I saw you name P means Frank drives a truck and Q is Vinny drives a minivans. Very good. But you need to have the symbolic form of the whole argument similar with Bích Liu's answer. Also, the name is same, but you don't have the symbolic form. But then I saw that Ngọc Thảo and Bích Liu also checked the third row, okay, and come up with the arguments is invalid. Okay, I want to see the other answers with all of the parts needed for the answer. And 2 of you missed the symbolic form of the arguments. If you don't have the symbolic form of the arguments, maybe you don't have a correct for the table that you need, the columns that you need. And then I saw the answers from Hải Yến. Nguyễn Thị Hải Yến also don't have the symbolic form. And even the name of the variables. And Nguyễn Thị Hải Yến also checked the third row. And now Hải Yến said this is valid. So Hải Yến answer for the validity is different from Ngọc Thảo and Bích Liu. You see? I need to see more. All right. I saw the answer from Hồng Nhung. Hồng Nhung also name, but didn't put it into symbolic form for the argument. And Hồng Nhung also had the same checking for the third row and then invalid. So Hồng Nhung is different from Nguyễn Thị Hải Yến. Hồng Nhung is the same with Bích Liễu and Phạm Thị Ngọc Thảo. And then Nguyễn Xuân Sơn. Now Xuân Sơn used the Excel. And I don't see the name, isn't it? Only the table is difficult. So you need to name, you explain the name, and you need to put your argument into symbolic form. And you need to come up with whether the argument is valid or invalid as well, isn't it? And then Xuân Sơn, next time, put the 2 columns of the standard variable first, and then take negation later on. You don't put the negation column in between of the standard columns, okay? Because we have the systematic way of filling for the standard columns. What if you deal with 3 variables, 4 variables? If you put like that, you may confuse. Very good. I see the answers. I could give comments to you and you can learn from my comments, isn't it? I expect a complete answer. Please, someone help me. Are you tired? Are you sleepy or what? Or difficult to understand? Then please ask. But I do expect to have a full correct answer. Please. All right, I saw the answer from Tường Vân. I don't see the symbolic form of the whole argument. I saw the name, I saw the table, and I saw the highlight rows, the third one that she checked. She didn't put asterisk. And the C for the conclusion column, I don't know which one is premise, which one is conclusion, but she said that this argument is invalid. So yeah, Tường Vân, please also fill in the missing part. Hải Yến, Nguyễn Hoàng Hải Yến, also I don't see the naming of the conversion of the symbolic form in the argument. I see the name, I see the columns. I saw you check the 2 columns and then you come up with invalid. Why you circle the negation here? Because you copy. But please also add the symbolic form for the whole argument. Anyone else? And I saw the answers from Trúc Na, and I saw the name, but in the name, Trúc Na, check the negation in the name, something wrong. Trúc Na, be careful. We don't put the negation in the name. I don't know why you put it like that. And then also, Trúc Na, check the 3rd row. Okay? All right, we are running out of time, but I don't really receive the correct answers that I expect. Even now, Trần Gia Huy provides the answers, and he typed it very good, he named, but he also didn't put it into symbolic form for the whole argument. Okay, you guys, please make sure that you have all of the parts. Here, the part is, yeah, you need to name. Okay, you put it into symbolic form. You have to put it into symbolic form. Even though I put it here, but when you draw it, when you make it to your answers, you have to put it again. And then, yeah, like you guys did, we need the first 2 columns for the standard variables. And the way to fill in double true, double false, true, false continuously, isn't it? And you need additional 2 columns for the negation, because we need it for the premise and for the conclusion columns. So the last 2 columns are for the premise and conclusion. You see, put asterisk, put the C here to indicate that we are going to look at this column and check with the last column. And here, all of you missed this part because maybe you think that I have in the slide, you don't have to rewrite it, but actually you have to rewrite it, okay, next time. And all of you, I think, are correct when you said that you are going to check the 3rd column, the 3rd row. But actually, we have the 3rd and the 4th, isn't it? Which has the premise true. But then the 3rd one caused the problem because we could see the case, the row where we have premise true, but conclusion is false. Therefore, this is an invalid argument. Okay, so you see that although your table are correct, but you should highlight the columns that you want to check. And then you need to make sure that you have the convert or symbolic form of the whole argument. Okay, thank you very much. Especially like Hải Yến did, she copied the columns again. Trúc Na also copied the column, but Giang Huy didn't copy. He put an asterisk for the column of the premise. But he put the negation before the column of the second variable, which is not so good. Okay, you may get confused because of that if you have a bigger table. So be careful. Okay, thank you. Now, try to save time. Make it faster. Now, you guys did, but some of you still make mistakes and you didn't have enough answers to be in full. That's why please take note that we are going to have exercise at homework today. Okay, and you don't need to take note now because I will upload it on Blackboard. Okay, so make sure you guys practice. If you work in group, practice in group. Okay, if you work alone, practice and then submit me. Okay, I will inform you about the assignments later on. But yeah, this is the first assignment today. We have the later one as well. Now, what we'll learn is the negation and conjunction with 2 variables. Now, I want you guys to practice with 3 variables. It will be more difficult. Make sure you follow the tips and the rule. Okay, now let's go. If it is 3 variables, first of all, you need to remember that we need to have 8 rows for 3 variables, isn't it? And then you need the first column for the first variables. And here, the way we do, we learned already. If it is 8, then 4 times true, 4 times false. And the second, then double, 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 double. Double true, double false, double true, double false. Okay? And the third one is true, false, continuously until you fill in all of the rows. Okay, then that is the case when we have 3 variables. And then additional columns that we need will be depending on the statements that we have that we symbolize in the argument. Okay, and then the validity rules will be the same. All right, we need to look for all of the columns of premises and find all the rows that has premise true, but if conclusion is false, then it is invalid. If we could not find that rows, then the argument is valid. Okay, be careful. Now, let's practice with this. Again, make it fast. And here, I don't symbolize it into argument for you. Make sure you have that part in your answer. And do it quick. We don't have much time. Okay, you should spend only less than 3 minutes for this exercise. I know that it's difficult, but so far we only learn about conjunction and negation rule. Later on, it is more complicated because we learn more rules. Okay. Are you done? So here, be aware that we have 3 variables, okay? Okay, I saw the answers from Tram An. Okay, and here Tram An also type in the Excel, so I don't see the arguments being symbolized. I only saw we have 3 columns for the standard, and we need additional 3 columns. Okay, and Tram An didn't highlight which line or which row she has to check. It's difficult for me to say. And then, wow, I got the other answers from Nguyễn Hoàng Hải Yến. Okay, here Hải Yến only make the symbolic form for the conclusion. Why? And then, all right, she has the symbolic form for the last 2 columns, and then the last one is for the conclusion. And she checked the row number 3, and she said that this is valid argument. Okay, and Sun Seung said it is also valid, and Sun Seung also highlighted the 3rd row, but Sun Seung answers did not have put the asterisk for the column, so I don't know which one is the premise and which one is conclusion. And similar, An Thơ also name, and I saw something next to that for the name, but not the symbolic form of the argument. And An Thơ also checked the 3rd row. And no asterisk in the column of premise. I don't know which one is the column. Okay, and also valid. Tường Vân, Phạm Tường Vân. I need to open the pictures in big. Oh, okay, very good. I could see the name here and then the symbolic form of the argument. I saw that we need 7 columns here. And then she highlighted the 3rd row, which is the row that she needs to check, and then this argument is valid. I like the answers from Tường Vân. The full answers must be like that. Okay, Hồng Nhung also got the answers, but Hồng Nhung didn't put the argument into symbolic form. I told you guys again and again. All right, and Bích Liễu, so I will give the bonus for, let's say, Phạm Tường Vân first. Let me take note. And I will look at the other friends' answers later. Okay, Phạm Tường Vân, Hồng Nhung, you missed the symbolic form. Bích Liễu also, yeah, all of the part is there. 7 columns is needed, and check the 3rd one. 7 columns because she didn't duplicate, okay? Actually, Bích Liễu, next time you make the conclusion of the columns to be the last one, all right? And move the column of premise to be close to the conclusion column. But anyway, you have the symbolic form of the arguments, and then you highlight that you check the 3rd one. That is also valid. Quỳnh Nga also used a drawing, and we could see that she has 7 columns, and she didn't have the symbolic form of the arguments, I think. Yeah, you don't have it. You have it, but you don't name the variable. Okay, Giang Huy, I saw the answers. Minh Thị, okay, it takes too long time for this kind of exercise. So you could see that Tường Vân got the first correct answers, full of the information there. You should have something like that. So first thing you need to do is you name the variables. Okay, if you use PQR like all of us do now, it is okay. But make sure you explain it, or you use different alphabet, this is okay, but explain it. And then convert your argument into symbolic form. This is very much important. You don't miss it. Because if you don't convert it into symbolic form, you don't know what else would be the columns that you need, isn't it? So then you convert it into symbolic form, you make the table. The first 3 columns are the standard variables column, all right? And the way filling, you know how to fill. I don't explain again. And then you need the negation column because you need it for the 2nd premise, isn't it? And then you need additional 3 columns for the 2 premises and 1 conclusion. Some of you didn't repeat the column P, and it takes very long way back to the 1st column and something in between, so you may confuse, isn't it? And then you fill in. Okay, the P is just the copy. The 2nd premise is the conjunction of the 4th column and the 3rd column. So look at the 4th and the 3rd to take the value for the column of the premise 2. And then for the last column, it is the conjunction of the 1st column and the 3rd column. You see, many columns. You need to learn how to ignore, how to hide the other column, something in between, in order not to make mistakes. And then if possible, then you also can fill in the table like this. You have to do it by yourself because you see many T, many F here. If you don't do it by hand, by your own hand, you will make mistake. Okay, and make sure you have all of the components of your answers here. And then highlight the row that you need to check. And here you could see that we only have one row number 3, that has all premises true, isn't it? You only highlight the row in the premise column. You don't need to highlight the other rows of the other columns. Okay, and then look back to, or look forward to its conclusion. And this is not the false conclusion. Therefore, we don't see the row where premise is true but conclusion false. In other words, this is a valid argument. Try to make it like that, okay? Right? Now, you see that this is just this conjunction and negation. It takes you a lot of time already. Now, we are going to learn the other type of relation. It is disjunction. And when this is disjunction, in your statement, you will see either or. So either some information or some information. And the two information has the relation of disjunction. And you are going to symbolize the disjunction by the small v, like this. Okay, and very much similar with the first relation, the conjunction. You are going to list up the value of the disjunction based on the value of the two claims here and the rule of the disjunction. So the disjunction rule is, a disjunction is false if and only if both of the simpler claims are false. Somehow opposite with the conjunction, isn't it? So again, the disjunction is false if and only if both claims are false. The remaining case, the disjunction is true. You see, this is how we fill in the column of disjunction based on the value of the claims column, okay, or the variables column, and the disjunction rule. Then you can practice. Now, I don't want to waste time. You can do it and check with my answer, okay? Now, you can see that we have the relation of or here. So we are practicing the disjunction, okay? And then we have two information. Frank is angry, Hank is tired. So we are going to name. P means Frank is angry, or you can use different alphabet. Q means Hank is tired, okay? Make sure you explain it here. And then convert your arguments into symbolic form, all right? The first statement is only premise here, and then the second is the conclusion. So we have only one premise, and we convert it into symbolic form after we name. So here, the statement becomes P, V, Q, and then dot, 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 P. So you need to have a table with two variables, isn't it? So you will have this table. We need the first two columns for the standard variables, and the filling of the value we learn the systematic way. The third column, you need it because it is the premise. So you put asterisk next to the column. And then the last column is the conclusion. Please copy it. Do not be lazy. Okay, copy it to make sure that the conclusion column to be the last column. Okay, and then you see that after you make the truth table like this, you check the rows of the premise column. And here you see that you have 3 rows that has premise true, isn't it? But the third row has premise true but conclusion false. In this case, the first and the second rows are okay, but the third row make the whole argument become invalid. Do you understand? Yes or no? All right, and now I look back to the chat box and I saw many of you using the Excel here, and you are able to highlight something like that. Make sure you have the symbolic form of the arguments, okay? So now we are learning about the disjunction, and this is the example of the disjunction. And the way of checking the validity is the same. Just you have to make sure that you follow the disjunction rule here. Okay? Now, how about this case? It is something with the not here, but be careful because we have it is not the case that. So if it is just the not, we know that the not means the negation. But when you have the it is not the case that, it means it is the negation of the whole part behind. Okay, the whole phrase behind. And the whole phrase behind here is Frank is angry or Hank is tired. Now, please spend time to do this exercise. And make sure you have all of the components of the answers, okay? I expect that. Again, very much careful with it is not the case that, okay? If it takes time to type on the computer or laptop, I think write down on the paper would be faster, isn't it? But you need to have something to take a picture of that box. Okay, I see the first picture from Ngọc Thảo, Phạm Thị Ngọc Thảo. Oh, right. Okay, I saw Ngọc Thảo put the naming at the bottom, so you put it on at first, isn't it? But Ngọc Thảo, how many variables are we having? Then Frank is angry, Hank is tired, and then we have Ngọc Thảo. Next time when you symbolize your argument like that, you should break into different line. Okay, the dot 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 is in the second line. All right, but I told you guys be careful already because we have it is not the case that. So it is not the case that is the big negation of something. So the big negation of Frank is angry or Hank is tired. Okay, Ngọc Thảo. So your symbolic form for the first statement is wrong. It's not like that. I I saw the answer from Tường Vân. Let me open it. Okay, right. Very good. So Frank is angry. P. Hank is tired. Q. And then, yeah, is this not the case that P or Q? And then negation P and negation Q. Not the C at the end, but the dot before that line. Okay, Tường Vân. And then she made it with 7 columns, and she need to check the column with the asterisk and the column with conclusion, and she checked for the last row, and she said this is valid argument. Okay, let's check with the other friends. So I think Tường Vân got the full answers, and somehow similar with Thu Anh. Also Thu Anh checked the last column. The 3 dots of Thu Anh is somehow opposite. One at top, 2 at the bottom, Thu Anh. And she also checked the last row, and this is valid argument. Okay, that could be somehow similar with Anh Duy, but Anh Duy, it is not the case that, where is it? You don't have, it is not the case that for your symbolic form, BVQ only is not enough, isn't it? So it means you will have the wrong table. Anh Duy, Đặng Quốc Anh Duy, please check again. I saw the other answers from Minh Thủy. Let me open it in big. Wait. All right, here. Minh Thủy also named but didn't convert the argument into symbolic form. But she had somehow same table with our friends, which is, I think it is correct. But she missed the part of the symbolic form for the argument. Okay, Thủy. All right, I think you guys have your own answers, but I cannot wait for more. Now, it is similar. First of all, you have to name. So if you use PQ like us, then yeah, P means Frank is angry. Q means Hank is tired, okay? And it is not the case that. So we will take the negation for the whole information. So this is the converted or the symbolic form of our arguments. And the 3 dots is like this, okay? 1 on top, 2 at the bottom. All right. Now, then we need the columns. We need the first 2 columns because it is our standard columns, isn't it, for the standard variables. And then we need the negations column because we need it for our conclusion column right here. So after we have it, we take negation. And then the next column we need it is the PVQ because we need it for our premise. And this is wrong. If you don't take the negation of the whole one, you make the wrong table. And after you conduct this kind of tables, columns, then yeah, we need additional 2 columns for premise with asterisk and for conclusion, the C. And then, yeah, like you guys said, you check the last row. And this is the only row where you have premise true. So the conclusion is not false. Therefore, this is a valid argument. Okay. Now, practice with this one. 3 variables. You have conjunction, you have negation, you have disjunction. Oh, just now I saw the answer from Bích Hiệp as well, and that is correct. Now, do it for the 3 variables. Save the time. Okay, I saw the answer from Lý Hoàng Ly. I'm sorry. But yeah, let me see. Oh, why don't you provide the symbolic form of the argument? And okay, try to add it now. Put it in your paper, and then the notice is yeah, you highlight the third row and you say this is an invalid argument. But make sure to add the symbolic form of the arguments there. And then Hải Yến, what is the name? Nguyễn Thị Hải Yến had, okay, the name and the symbolic form on the top left of the argument. And she also highlighted the third one. And she said that this is invalid argument. Somehow same with Hoàng, I need to check your full name later on. Hoàng Lý or Hoàng Lý. Then what else? I think Hải Yến got all of the components for the answers. Okay, and the first answers missed that part. But somehow maybe you guys have the same answers. It might be correct. You guys check the third one and it makes the whole argument become invalid. Right, I think you guys also have the answers for yourself, but let me show the answers. Okay, maybe something similar with our friends here. So you have, okay, what does it mean P, what does it mean Q, and what does it mean R, isn't it? And then you will need to convert it into symbolic form. This is the correct symbolic form. If you don't have it, you have to add it because you need it to make sure how many columns you need in advance, isn't it? Then you make it into table. The first 3 columns are the standard variables, isn't it? And you see that we have 8 possibilities. So 4 times true, 4 times false, double true, double false, double true, double false. True, false continuously until you fill in all of the rows. And then you need to have the conjunction Q and R first. We keep the PVQ later because we want it to be close to the premise column, isn't it? So we take the conjunction first in order to later on we make it for the second premise. And then we need the later 3 columns for the 2 premises and 1 conclusion, isn't it? So here we also highlight the third row because we saw that the third row has premise true but conclusion false. But actually we also have the fourth row has premise true, conclusion false. And then the second row as well as row number 6 that has premise true. But then for the second and the sixth one we have premises true. So anyway, the third and the fourth or just one of them make the whole arguments become invalid already, because that is the validity rule set. If you could find any rows that has premise true but conclusion false, then the whole arguments become invalid. Do you understand? Okay, so yeah, you need to practice by yourself. Then this is the second homework for today. And sorry, don't scream, don't be upset. You have to do the homework. I could see that if you don't practice, you cannot master the tool. And only few of you send me the answers, so I cannot give the comments to you. So you have to practice. You learn with your group mates, okay? And if you don't understand, you ask your group mates, okay? And if after discussing with your group mate, you still don't understand, you can send the questions to me. Maybe before the next class, okay? At the beginning of the next class, you can raise the questions. Why, Minh Tú? It's not difficult, isn't it? Come on, try. Now, that is the homework. Now, we have to learn the last relation. You see, it takes a lot of time for you to practice, but we don't have time in class too much. So please do it by yourself at home. Now, the fourth conditional statement is the last relation that we learn. And we have the rule for conjunction, we have the rule for disjunction, we have the rule for negation, and now for the conditional, we also have the rule. And the conditional statement is when in your arguments you have if, then. Okay, so if we have P arrow Q, the arrow means the conditional, the symbol of the conditional. So P arrow Q means if P, then Q. And we also have the rule for the conditional. Based on the rule, based on the value of the variables, then we can fill in the rules, the value for the P arrow Q. And here, the conditional statements with the rule is that a conditional is false if and only if the first claim is true, but the second is false. So here, when you look at P arrow Q, P is the first, Q is the second. So the P arrow Q will be false if P is true, Q is false. So look at the table here. We list up the 4 possibilities of the value for PQ already. And the second row here, the first is true, the second is false. Therefore, their conditional is false. The remaining cases, true. You see, this is the rule of conditional statements. So please remember the rules. Conjunction when you have and but, however. Disjunction when you have either or. Conditional when you have if then. Okay, and then you can practice with it. Now, we don't have time. We have this kind of arguments and I'm going to explain it and try to follow. If not, read or watch the recorded video again. Okay, anyway, here in this original arguments, we have 2 statements of premises, isn't it? And of course, the last one is the conclusion. And we are learning about conditional statement with the symbol, the arrow. So if it's rain, then the ground is wet. It is raining, so the ground is wet. So we have 2 informations here. It rains, the ground is wet. So we name the objects. We name the variables. Okay. The first one, P, means it rains. The second, Q, it means the ground is wet. Okay, a complete sentence or statement. Then you convert your arguments into symbolic form. If it rains, then the ground is wet, become P arrow Q. It is raining, confirm the situation. So the second premise, P. And then, so, ... the ground is wet, Q. Okay, and now you see that your argument has 2 variables. So you need the first 2 columns, P, Q, and fill in the value. And then you need the third column, the fourth column, and the last column for the 2 premises and the conclusion. And yeah, we put the asterisk and the C here. And then for the third column, you need to apply the conditional rule. Conditional is false only if the first claim is true, but the second claim is false. The remaining case, the conditional is true. Okay, the fourth column, just copy the first column. The last column, just copy the second column. And then when you look at the truth table, which is correct now, make sure it is correct. And then only the first row has 2 premises true, isn't it? And check with the conclusion. Conclusion is not false. So this argument is right. This argument is what? Valid or invalid? Oh, valid, isn't it? We couldn't see the row where all premises true but conclusion false. Therefore, this is a valid argument. You see? And in this case, okay, we have different condition, the same condition, but different premise too. And we have the not there, the negation there. And then the conclusion also have negation. So here in this example, we have the relation of condition, we have the negation there. So be careful with the negation. So maybe the name of the variables will be the same with the previous example. P means it rains, okay? Q means the ground is wet, isn't it? And then when you convert it, okay, the first premise will be P arrow Q, the same. But then the second premise is negation Q. All right, conclusion, ... negation P, isn't it? Now you need the first 2 columns for the first 2 variables, the standard variables. You need the negation columns later on, but we need to take the 3 columns for the 2 premises here and the conclusion. And we take the negation after the arrow because, yeah, premise, conclusion. We don't need to take the negation between because we want to make the premise to be close to conclusion, isn't it? And then, yeah, fill in. You have to remember the rule to fill in. Take negation, use the conditional rule to fill in. And then here also we see that All right, only the last row has premise true, but the conclusion is not false. Again, this argument is valid, isn't it? So you see, we don't have time, so I have to go very fast for the last part here. Now, how about this one? Okay, let's say we don't have a situation for the original statements. We only have the symbolic form like this, and when we read it, we see that we have three variables.
Teacher, you are mute.
Who mutes me? Who don't want to listen to me, then mute me. Where did I stop at? Where is the last part you heard me?
You explain the meaning of the P and QR.
Here in this slide or the previous slide?
This slide, yeah.
All right, okay. So here, someone please do not mute me. If you don't want to listen, you just leave, okay? But do not mute me. And thanks me for telling me because I don't see anything in the chat box now. All right, thanks for reminding me. So in this slide, I'm trying to get you to practice with three variables, okay? And here we see the conditional relation, the conjunction relation, okay? And if you count the number, we don't have a original statement for the argument. It is already being symbolized like this. And when you count, you see we have three variables, isn't it? So the first three columns are for the three standard variables. And the way to fill in, you know already. With 8 lines, then the first is 4 times true, 4 times false. The second is double, 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 double. And the last is 1 by 1, true, false, 1 by 1, isn't it? And then you need additional 3 columns for the premises and conclusion. And here, make sure you apply the conjunction rule for this column, the conditional rule for the 4th column, which is our first premise, and conjunction rule for the 5th column, which is our premise 2. And then we copy the column Q back for the conclusion. And after, you could fill in the value. Here, you see that you have to do by yourself. If you only look at my slide, you're confused because you need to do by hand and you may make mistakes and then you learn from your mistakes. Okay? Now, after we make a table like this, if it is correct, you will see that you will have to look at the first row because only the first row, then we have all premises true, isn't it? And we look with the conclusion. The conclusion is not false. Again, therefore, this is a valid argument. Do you understand? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Again, do not mute me. Thank you very much. Okay. So this is the part of the conditional statement. And in summaries, I want to show you this slide to summarize our content today. So today we'll learn about the truth table. It is a tool to check the validity of the argument in the deductive group. And it is not only for one type of argument, but as long as you have the information in the arguments in the conjunction, disjunction, conditional, then you can apply the truth table. But the Venn diagram is only for the categorical arguments, okay? Please remember that. And here in this slide, I summarize the rule of the conditions of the conjunction, disjunction, and conditional statement, and the symbol of it. Okay, so please remember, when you apply the truth table, make sure you have 4 components. First, you name the variables, explain the variables. Okay. Second, convert your arguments into symbolic form based on the name of variables that you name. You can use any alphabet you want, okay? But remember, the name of variable must be a complete sentence or statement. All right, then convert it into symbolic form for the whole argument, and then make the truth table. It depends on the numbers of the variables in your argument, then you have the size of the table and the required columns for the standard variables, okay? And after you fill in, then you need to check additional columns that you need, and also you apply the rules to fill in the columns. And then finally, if you have a complete and correct table already, then you will find all of the rows that has premise true. Only look at the column of premise. That's why we put the asterisk for the column of the premise, isn't it? And only look at the column of premise, we find all the rows that has premise true and check with that rows for the conclusion column. And if we find any rows that has premises true but conclusion is false, then the whole argument becomes invalid. But if you could not find that row, okay, it means your argument is valid. So I think that is the end of today's content. And like Minh Tú said, his brain's broken. But I hope that you can understand, or you can get some main idea. And if you still don't understand, you can watch the recorded video again, or you can ask your group mate, or even ask me. Okay? But I want to hear if any response now, any questions now that you have. Any questions? Yes or no? And please remember that we have 2 homeworks for today. You guys do it in one submission form, then submit. Thanh Trung said everything is clear. Minh Đức said no. Zavi is no questions. So I hope you guys, if you have questions, either you ask now or later, but you better ask, okay? If you don't ask, I don't know whether you understand it or not. And try to practice, try to do the homework, because it helps you to make it more correct and save time. Next time you do, it is faster, isn't it? Okay, so if you guys don't have any questions, then I'm going to post the link for the quiz today. Okay, and the link will be available from now until 5 p.m. Is it okay? Yes or no?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. There's no one who cannot do the quiz now, isn't it? All right, you better raise now and don't put in the chat box and or message me later on saying that I can do now. Could you please open it later? Now I'm asking, I expect all of you are listening to me. All right, and I'm asking you guys whether the link is available from now until 5 p.m. Is it okay? If you say yes, or if you don't say no, I understand that it is okay. Right? Okay, and remember to look at the slide. I'm going to upload on Blackboard one thing today to do the homework, okay, and submit the homework on time. Now, this is the link for the quiz today, and please do it. And the link again opened until 5 p.m. No excuse if you don't submit it on time, okay? Now, could you please turn on the microphone and say goodbye?
Goodbye, teacher.
Goodbye, teacher.
Thank
Bye,
you.
teacher.
Goodbye, teacher.